If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tell us what city you're watching from. Continuing. The sun rose timidly over the Hope Gardens community, on the outskirts of New Orleans. The sound of buses already began to fill the narrow streets when Victoria Santos opened her eyes. 10 years old, with curly hair falling over her shoulders like a black cascade, and almond-shaped eyes that reflected a maturity incompatible with her age. "Victoria, wake up, honey. Mrs. Cecilia Vance called me, saying she needs me to come in earlier today." Mrs. Louisa shouted from the small stove, where she was preparing a quick coffee. Louisa was a woman of 40, but her tired body bore the appearance of someone much older. A cleaner in family homes for almost 2 decades, she had supported her daughter alone since Joachim, her husband, had left them 3 years ago. Not by his own choice, but due to a sudden heart complication that took him away on a rainy day, leaving only his old guitar leaning against the living room wall as a memory. "I'm awake." "Mom?" Victoria replied, rubbing her eyes as she sat at the makeshift table in the corner of the kitchen. "Are you cleaning the house in Ondine Heights today?" "Yes, I am. And you're coming with me because you don't have school, remember?" "Teachers' meeting?" Victoria nodded, quickly eating the buttered bread and drinking the cup of coffee with milk her mother had served her. It wasn't the first time she had accompanied Louisa to work. In fact, she knew the routine well. While her mother cleaned, cooked, and organized the Vance family's mansion, she would sit on the back porch, reading a borrowed book or simply observing the distant Lake Pontchartrain, visible from the upscale neighborhood. Half an hour later, mother and daughter were already on the crowded bus, climbing the inclines of New Orleans. Victoria, with a small backpack on her back, looked out the foggy window at the gradual changes in the landscape. The higher they went, the more the cramped houses gave way to spacious constructions with well-kept gardens. "You know, Mom," Victoria said softly, "yesterday I dreamed about Dad again." Louisa held her daughter's hand more tightly. "And what was he doing this time?" "He was playing that song. The one he said he composed for me when I was born." Louisa smiled, feeling her heart ache. Joachim had never formally studied music. Self-taught, he had learned to play the guitar on his own, listening and repeating. On summer nights, he would sit on the small balcony of their one-room apartment and strum melodies that filled the neighborhood. His natural talent was rare, a sensitivity that seemed to capture sounds no one else heard. "Your father had music in his soul," Louisa said, adjusting a rebellious curl in her daughter's hair. "And you got that from him. Remember how he used to sit you on his lap while he played?" "You weren't even 3 and you were already swaying to the perfect rhythm." Victoria smiled. Her memories of her father were few, fragmented like an incomplete puzzle, but the feeling of being enveloped in music when he was around remained alive within her. The bus stopped near a gated community of luxurious homes. Mother and daughter got off and walked to a white gate where a security guard greeted them with familiarity. The Vance house was a modern 2-story building, with large glass windows that reflected the blue New Orleans sky. Cecilia Vance, a businesswoman in her 50s, waited at the door with an impatient expression. "Louisa, thank goodness you're here. I have an important lunch today and everything needs to be impeccable by noon." "Don't worry. Mrs. Cecilia, I'll start right away." Victoria remained a few steps behind, almost invisible as she always did. Cecilia noticed her and sighed. "Your girl came again." "All right, but ask her not to make any noise. Marina is studying for her final exams." Marina Vance was Cecilia's 15-year-old daughter, whom Victoria rarely saw, despite the numerous times she had accompanied her mother to that house. Usually the teenager was locked in her room or out with friends. While Louisa began her work, Victoria automatically headed for the back porch. From there she could see the house's pool and, in the distance, the intense blue of Lake Pontchartrain. She sat on the wooden bench and took an old notebook from her backpack, where she used to draw or write to pass the time. The hours dragged slowly. Inside the house she heard the vacuum cleaner, the running water, the furniture being moved. These were the sounds of her mother's daily struggle, the symphony of hard work that ensured a roof over their heads. Around 11 o'clock, the porch door opened. Victoria expected to see her mother bringing her something to eat, as she usually did during breaks. Instead, she saw Marina Vance, with her long hair tied in a messy ponytail and dark circles under her eyes betraying sleepless nights. "Hi," Marina said, looking as surprised as Victoria by the unexpected encounter. "Sorry, I didn't know anyone was here." Victoria just nodded, quickly closing her notebook. Marina, instead of leaving, approached and sat at the other end of the bench. "You're Louisa's daughter, right? I saw you arriving earlier today." "Yes, I am." "My name is Victoria." "Victoria," Marina repeated, as if testing the name. "Cool, I'm Marina." An uncomfortable silence settled between them. Victoria could feel the invisible chasm that separated them. More than the age difference, it was the entire world of opportunities and privileges that existed between the cleaner's daughter and the boss's daughter. "What are you drawing?" Marina asked, pointing to the closed notebook on Victoria's lap. "Nothing much," she replied, embarrassed. "Just some musical notes I'm trying to remember." Marina's eyes lit up with genuine interest. "You like music?" "Me too. Actually, I'm going crazy with these final conservatory exams. My mom insists I continue, but sometimes I think I don't have enough talent." "Do you play an instrument?" Victoria asked, curiosity overcoming shyness. "Piano, since I was 6. But I'm not as good as my mom expected me to be." Something in the way Marina said that made Victoria feel strangely connected to her. That rich girl in her huge house overlooking the sea also carried a burden, albeit a different one from hers. "My dad played guitar," Victoria said, the words escaping before she could contain them. "He played by ear, you know, without needing to read notes on paper." Marina smiled. "That's a gift, you know. My teacher says that those who play by ear have a natural talent that not all formally trained musicians can develop." Before Victoria could reply, Cecilia's voice sounded from inside the house. "Marina, phone for you." "Coming," the teenager replied, getting up. "See you around, Victoria. It was nice talking to you." When Marina disappeared inside the house, Victoria remained motionless, a small smile on her lips. That unexpected conversation had planted something inside her, a seed that, without her knowing yet, would change the course of her life forever. The following week, Louisa had to take Victoria to the Vance house again. It was school vacation, and the girl had no one to stay with while her mother worked. What once seemed like a tedious day for Victoria now carried a small expectation. Would she see Marina again? When they arrived, Cecilia was leaving, elegantly dressed for another day of appointments at the office. She barely greeted Louisa before getting into her imported car. Victoria watched the woman's movements with curiosity, wondering what it would be like to have a mother who wore expensive clothes and high heels that made noise walking on the marble floor. "You can leave Victoria in the TV room today," Mrs. Cecilia said before leaving. "Marina has the flu and stayed home. She can keep you company as long as she doesn't bother her." Louisa nodded, leading Victoria into the luxurious house. The girl rarely entered the main rooms, usually staying restricted to the back porch or the small pantry, where her mother ate her meals. Now following Louisa through the spacious living room, with light-colored furniture and abstract paintings on the walls, she felt like an intruder in a world that wasn't hers. The TV room was a cozy environment, with leather sofas and a television so large it looked like a small cinema screen. Marina was there, wrapped in a blanket, her red nose betraying her cold. "Hi, Victoria," she said with a faint smile when she saw them enter. "My mom said you'd be coming today." Louisa left Victoria with a kiss on her forehead and went to start her chores. The girl stood still, not knowing exactly what to do or where to sit. "Come here," Marina called, patting the space next to her on the sofa. "I was watching a show I think you'll like." Hesitantly, Victoria approached and sat down, keeping a respectful distance. On the enormous screen, people of all ages performed on an illuminated stage, each showcasing a different talent. A juggler, an elderly contortionist, a dance group, and then a boy of about 12 appeared with a violin in his hands. Victoria felt her heart quicken when the boy began to play. His fingers danced over the strings with impressive precision, while his body swayed to the rhythm of the melody he created. The audience was in absolute silence, completely captivated. "This is America's Rising Stars," Marina explained, observing Victoria's reaction. "It's a show where ordinary people showcase their talents and can win prizes. That boy there, Philip, he won last year. Amazing, right? He learned to play the violin by himself, can you believe it?" Victoria's eyes couldn't tear away from the screen. Something inside her vibrated in tune with that music, as if each note touched an invisible string in her own heart. How? How did he learn by himself? She asked almost in a whisper. From what they told in his story, his dad worked in an orchestra as a cleaner. He would stay after rehearsals and practice secretly with the instruments. When they discovered his talent, he got a scholarship to study music formally. When the performance ended, Victoria barely realized she had been holding her breath. She exhaled slowly, as the audience on the show erupted in applause. "You really like music, don't you?" Marina asked, observing her with curiosity. Victoria nodded, still absorbed in the images. "My dad played guitar. He taught me a few things before he left. But I was very little." Marina coughed a few times before continuing. "You know, my teacher always says that those who have music in their blood learn one way or another, with or without formal lessons." The two girls spent the rest of the morning watching the show. Marina explained the details of the competition, how participants were selected, how judges voted, what happened to the winners. For Victoria, it was as if a window had opened to a world where talent and dedication could transform lives, regardless of where a person came from. During the show's breaks, the two began to talk about their lives. Marina, despite all her privileges, carried her own insecurities. An only child of demanding and often absent parents, she felt pressured to be perfect in everything. In school grades, in piano lessons, in swimming competitions. "Sometimes I just wanted to, be normal," she confessed. "To do things because I like them, not because they expect me to." Victoria listened attentively, realizing for the first time that having money didn't necessarily mean having happiness. She told Marina about her life in Hope Gardens, about the public school she attended, about her friends in the community, about her musician father who had passed away, leaving only memories and melodies. "He composed a song for me when I was born," Victoria recounted, her eyes shining with the memory. "My mom says he never wrote it down. He just played it from the heart. I'm afraid I'll forget what it was like." "You don't have any recording of him playing?" Victoria shook her head negatively. Cell phones with cameras were luxury items, back when her father was alive and even afterward. Her family never had the means to have modern devices. "But I remember a bit of the melody," she said, beginning to hum softly. Marina listened carefully, and then, to Victoria's surprise, she got up and went to a small digital piano in a corner of the room. With a few hesitant touches, she began to reproduce the notes Victoria had sung. "Is it more or less like this?" she asked. Victoria's eyes filled with tears. It was as if, for a magical moment, her father was there, manifested through the keys played by Marina. "It's exactly like that," she replied, her voice choked. During lunch, while Louisa worked in the kitchen preparing the meal Cecilia had planned, the girls continued talking. Marina showed Victoria her tablet, where she had music apps and games. "Look," she explained, opening a colorful program. "This app teaches music theory. It's really cool. It feels more like a game than studying." Victoria watched in amazement as Marina navigated the device with familiarity. In her house, the only electronic device was a simple cell phone her mother used for work calls, and a small television that only got free-to-air channels. When America's Rising Stars returned after the lunch break, a young woman with a guitar took the stage. She played her own composition, something between contemporary American music and classical. The judges were visibly impressed, especially a grey-haired man whom Victoria hadn't noticed yet. "Who is that?" she asked, pointing to the man. "That's Maestro Thaddeus Martin," Marina replied with admiration. "He's like super famous in the classical music world. He's conducted orchestras all over the world. They say he has an eye for discovering unique talents." Maestro Thaddeus stood up after the young woman's performance and said something that stuck in Victoria's mind. "True musical talent doesn't need sheet music or perfect techniques. It comes from the soul, from the ability to transform emotions into sounds that touch the heart of those who listen." When the show ended, Victoria was transformed. An idea had formed in her head, a dream that seemed simultaneously impossible and inevitable. "Marina," she said, suddenly serious, "do you think I could learn to play an instrument like those people, even without money for lessons?" Marina stared at her for a moment, thoughtful. "Of course, many people learn by themselves these days, you know. There are free tutorials online, videos on YouTube. Victoria lowered her eyes, embarrassed. We don't have internet at home. Or a computer. A silence formed between them, the socio-economic chasm separating them becoming evident again. But then Marina smiled, her eyes shining with a sudden idea. Every time you come with your mum, we can watch more videos together. I can even download some tutorials for you to watch offline. We just need an instrument for you to practice. At that moment, Louisa appeared at the living room door. Victoria, let's go. I'm done for today. The girl got up, feeling a mix of reluctance to leave and excitement for the new friendship and the possibilities that had emerged. Marina walked her to the door. Come back soon, she whispered, lightly squeezing Victoria's hand. I have a surprise for you next time. On the way back home, as the bus descended the inclines of New Orleans towards their simple neighborhood, Victoria remained unusually quiet. Her mind was filled with dreams and melodies, with illuminated stages and applause. She didn't know how yet, but she was sure that day had changed her life forever. Louisa, noticing her daughter's silence, asked, "What's wrong, Victoria? Did something happen at Mrs. Cecilia Vance's house?" Victoria looked out the window, observing how the houses gradually changed from mansions to small clustered constructions. Then, turning to her mother with a determined smile, she replied, "I found out what I want to be when I grow up. Mum, I want to be a musician." Victoria's visits to the Vance house became more frequent in the following weeks. Coincidentally, Cecilia needed Louisa's help more during school holidays, while Marina, recovered from the flu, stayed home studying for her music conservatory makeup exams. The friendship between the two girls blossomed rapidly. Despite the social differences that separated them, Marina had found in Victoria a genuine companion, someone who listened without judgment and shared her passion for music. Victoria, in turn, had found in Marina a window to a world she could only imagine before. "Mum thinks I should be reviewing Bach and Chopin, but we're watching videos of contemporary American music and rock," Marina confessed one morning, showing Victoria a YouTube playlist. She doesn't understand that music goes far beyond the conservatory. It was a typical sunny Wednesday in New Orleans. Louisa was cleaning the upstairs bedrooms, while the girls were in Marina's room, a concession Cecilia had made after realizing her daughter seemed more cheerful since she started spending time with the cleaner's daughter. "Look what I found yesterday," Marina said, suddenly getting up. She opened the door of a built-in closet and began rummaging through boxes stored at the back. After a few minutes, she emerged holding a dusty black case. When she opened it, Victoria felt her heart quicken. It was a violin, old, made of dark wood and slightly scratched in places, but still magnificent in the girl's eyes. "It was my grandfather's," Marina explained. "He tried to teach me when I was little, but I ended up choosing the piano. This violin has been stored here for years." Victoria observed the instrument with a mixture of fascination and reverence, as if standing before a sacred treasure. She had never played a real violin, only seen them in videos and on television. Can I hold it?" she asked shyly. Marina smiled, handing her the open case. "Of course you can. In fact, I was thinking, you could keep it." Victoria's eyes widened. "Keep it? But that must be worth a fortune." "Not really. It's a student violin, and it's quite old. Besides, it's just collecting dust here. My mom doesn't even remember it exists." Victoria carefully picked up the instrument, feeling the weight of the wood in her small hands. It was lighter than she imagined. Along with the violin was a bow, whose hairs were dried out by time. "I don't even know how to hold it properly," she admitted. Marina grabbed her tablet and opened the browser. "Let's watch some basic tutorials. I'm sure you'll pick it up quickly." Over the next few hours, the girls watched dozens of videos on posture, how to hold the violin, correct finger placement, and the first notes a beginner should learn. Victoria absorbed every piece of information intensely, trying to reproduce the movements without producing sound, just to understand how her body should position itself. "You have perfect fingers for the violin," Marina observed, long and agile. "My piano teacher always said I had hands too small for certain pieces." When Victoria finally placed the bow on the strings for the first time, the sound produced was shrill and out of tune, making them both laugh. "Don't get discouraged," Marina encouraged. "Everyone starts that way. The violin is one of the most difficult instruments to master. At noon, Louisa appeared in the room to call Victoria for lunch. She stopped at the doorway, surprised to see her daughter with a violin in her hands. "What is that?" Victoria and Marina exchanged glances, unsure how to explain. "It's my grandfather's old violin," Marina finally replied. "No one has used it for years, so I thought Victoria could have it." "She's very interested in music." Louisa frowned, visibly uncomfortable. "We can't accept something like this. It's too valuable." "Please, Mrs. Louisa," Marina insisted. "It's important to me that someone who truly appreciates music can use this instrument. It's just abandoned here." Victoria looked at her mother with pleading eyes. Louisa sighed, recognizing in that gaze the same passion she saw in Joachim's eyes when he spoke of music. "I'll talk to Mrs. Cecilia first. If she authorizes it." "Mom won't even notice it's gone," Marina assured. "But if you want to talk to her, that's fine." To everyone's surprise, when Cecilia arrived home from work that afternoon and was told about the violin, she merely shrugged. "That old thing? You can take it, yes. Marina was never interested, and it's just taking up space. I was going to donate it to some institution anyway." And so that night, Victoria returned home carrying the black case as if transporting the most precious of treasures. During the bus ride, she held the violin firmly on her lap, fearing that any jolt could damage it. At home, in the small two-room apartment in Hope Gardens, Victoria opened the case on the bed she shared with her mother. The violin seemed even more beautiful under the yellowish light of the bare bulb hanging from the ceiling. "Your father would be proud," Louisa said, sitting beside her daughter. "He always said you were born with music in your soul." In the following days, when she wasn't accompanying her mother to work, Victoria dedicated every free moment to the violin. Without a teacher, without formal lessons, she relied only on the memory of the tutorials she watched at Marina's house and her unwavering determination. The beginning was frustrating. The sounds produced were far from the beauty she imagined. Her fingers ached after a few minutes of practice, and her neck became tense from trying to maintain the correct posture. But Victoria did not give up. The neighborhood soon got used to the shrill sounds coming from the small apartment. Mrs. Zuleika, an elderly lady who lived upstairs, would sometimes come down to bring a slice of cake and listen to the girls' progress. "My late husband played the accordion," she would say. "He started just like you, knowing nothing. And he even played at parties and local folk dances." During her visits to the Vance house, Victoria showed Marina her progress. Her friend, in turn, had downloaded dozens of tutorial videos to her tablet and transferred them to the old cell phone Louisa had managed to get for her daughter. A used device, with little memory, but at least it could store some videos. "You're progressing super fast," Marina admired after hearing Victoria play a complete scale without errors. "Some people at the conservatory take months to get that clean sound." One afternoon, about 2 months after getting the violin, Victoria was practicing on the apartment porch when she realized she could reproduce some notes of the song her father had composed for her. It wasn't perfect, and there were certainly parts of the melody she couldn't remember, but it was like having a piece of him back. Silent tears streamed down her face as she played, a mixture of longing and accomplishment. Louisa, who had just arrived home from work, stopped at the porch door, observing her daughter without her noticing. For a moment she saw Joachim in her, the same tilt of the head, the same expression of absolute concentration, as if the world around her disappeared when the music began. "It's so beautiful." "Honey," she finally said, revealing her presence. Victoria opened her eyes, returning to reality. "It was the music Dad made for me. I'm trying to remember what it was like." Louisa approached, sitting beside her daughter. "You know what he always said? That when you don't remember exactly how a song was, you can create the missing pieces. Music is alive, it's always changing." Those words ignited something in Victoria. She began to experiment, adding notes, creating variations where her memory failed. Gradually, the song took on a new form. It wasn't exactly what her father played, but it carried the same essence, the same feeling. Weeks turned into months. Summer gave way to autumn, which in New Orleans only meant milder days and occasional rain. Victoria continued practicing tirelessly, accompanying her mother to the Vance house whenever possible to show Marina her progress and learn new techniques through the videos. On one of these visits, Marina appeared with news. Registrations for America's Rising Stars are open, she announced, showing her phone screen. They're holding auditions here in New Orleans next month. Victoria felt her stomach drop. Despite all her progress, she knew she was still far from the level of the participants she saw on the show. I could never do it. I don't even have a teacher or anything. Marina shook her head, determined. It doesn't matter. Many people who sign up are self-taught. The important thing is to show your potential, your originality. And what would I play? I can barely execute the basic pieces properly. Your father's music, Marina replied without hesitation. The one you're recreating. It's beautiful, emotional, and has a story behind it. It's exactly the kind of thing they're looking for. Victoria felt a chill in her stomach, just thinking about the possibility. Going on a stage, in front of experienced judges and an entire audience, to play a song that wasn't even complete in her memory. I don't know, Marina. It sounds crazy. All great stories start with a little bit of craziness, her friend replied with a smile. Just think, what if you don't even try? You'll spend the rest of your life wondering what if. That night back in Hope Gardens, Victoria couldn't sleep. She looked at the peeling ceiling, imagining what it would be like to be under the stage lights. Fear and excitement mingled in her chest, while her fingers moved unconsciously, practicing the note positions in the air. What are you thinking about, honey? Louisa asked, noticing the girl's restlessness. Marina said registrations for America's Rising Stars are open. That I should try. Louisa was silent for a moment, absorbing the information. And do you want to? Victoria took a deep breath before answering. Yes. Mom, more than anything in the world. The queue for registrations for America's Rising Stars stretched for almost 2 blocks around the Crescent City Convention Center in downtown New Orleans. People of all ages eagerly awaited their chance, some with musical instruments, others with dance costumes, elaborate makeup, or magic props. It was a true parade of dreamers. Victoria and Louisa had arrived early, but even so they already found a crowd. The girl held the violin case against her chest, as if seeking protection. Her fingers trembled slightly. Are you sure you want to do this, honey? Louisa asked for the 3rd time that morning. You don't have to feel pressured. I am, Mom. I'm just nervous. In fact, nervous was an understatement to describe what Victoria felt. Her stomach was churning, and with each step the line advanced, her heart seemed to beat even faster. In recent weeks, she had practiced her father's music obsessively, perfecting every note, every transition, every emotion she wanted to convey. Marina had helped with technical tips, and even convinced her music theory teacher to listen to Victoria once to give professional suggestions. The teacher, a severe-looking Austrian woman, was surprised by the girl's natural talent and her ability to learn on her own. She has a rare gift, she commented to Marina later. With proper training, she could go very far. Now there in the queue, all those words of encouragement seemed distant. Victoria observed the other candidates, many with elaborate clothes, expensive equipment, some accompanied by private teachers giving last-minute instructions. I don't think I belong here, Mom, she whispered. Louisa squeezed her hand. Music doesn't choose social class, honey. Your father always said that. If you have music inside you, you have every right to be here as much as anyone. After almost 3 hours of waiting, it was finally Victoria's turn. A young producer with a clipboard led mother and daughter to a small room where 3 evaluators awaited. They were not the main judges of the show, just a pre-selection team. Full name? Asked a woman with glasses without looking up from her form. Victoria Santos. Age? 10 years old. Do you have any formal music training? Victoria swallowed hard before answering. No, ma'am. I learned by myself. This seemed to pique the evaluator's interest, who finally looked up to observe her. And what will you be presenting today? A composition by my father. He composed it for me when I was born, but it was never written down. I reconstructed it from memory and added some parts. The evaluators exchanged glances. One of them, a middle-aged man with grey hair, smiled slightly. Interesting. You can start when you're ready. Victoria carefully took the violin from its case. She adjusted it under her chin, took a deep breath as she had seen in the tutorials, and began to play. The first notes came out shaky, a reflection of nervousness. Victoria closed her eyes, trying to imagine. She was alone on her porch, playing only for the wind and the memory of her father. Gradually, the music flowed more naturally. It was not a technically perfect piece. There were moments where the tuning wavered, where the rhythm faltered slightly, but there was something in the melody, in the way Victoria completely surrendered to each note that was impossible to ignore. When she finished, a heavy silence hung in the room. Victoria opened her eyes, uncertain. The three evaluators watched her with unreadable expressions. "Thank you, Victoria," the woman with glasses finally said. "We will contact you if you are selected for the next phase." And so, as quickly as it had begun, the audition ended. Victoria left the room feeling strangely empty, as if she had left a piece of herself inside. "How was it?" Louisa asked anxiously. "I don't know, Mum. They didn't say anything." In the following weeks, Victoria obsessively checked the old phone, waiting for a call or message that never came. Marina tried to cheer her up, saying that the selection process was long and that she shouldn't lose hope. But as the days passed, it became increasingly clear that she had not been chosen. "It's okay," Louisa consoled her. "It was your first try. There will be other opportunities." Victoria agreed, but something had changed within her. The rejection, however expected, had planted a seed of doubt. Maybe Marina and her teacher were wrong. Maybe she didn't have enough talent. Her passion for the violin, however, remained intact. She continued practicing daily, now with a different purpose. No longer to impress judges or an audience, but because music had become an essential part of who she was. A month after the frustrated audition, on a Saturday afternoon, Louisa needed to do an extra cleaning job at a new client's house in the Red River district. As usual, Victoria accompanied her. While her mother worked, the girl waited in a small square in front of the house, the violin her only companion. The place was quiet, with some leafy trees offering pleasant shade. Victoria sat on a bench, took the violin from its case and began to play. It wasn't her father's music this time, but a melody she herself had begun to compose, something that spoke of expectations, disappointments, and the beauty of moving forward. Absorbed in the music, she didn't notice the young woman who stopped a few feet away, observing her with interest. Rachel Olson, 23, a journalism student, was returning from an interview for the cultural blog she maintained when the melody caught her attention. Silently, Rachel took out her phone and began to film. There was something hypnotic about the image of that simple-looking girl, completely absorbed in her music amidst the urban setting. The contrast between the beauty of the melody and the simplicity of the scene created a powerful narrative. When Victoria finished playing, Rachel approached. "Hi, sorry to interrupt. My name is Rachel. I filmed you playing. I hope you don't mind." Victoria blinked, surprised by the unexpected presence. "You filmed me?" "Yes, what you played was beautiful. I've never seen anything like it. May I ask your name? And where did you learn to play like that?" Still confused, Victoria answered Rachel's questions. She briefly told about her musician father, the violin she received from Marina, and how she had learned by herself. She did not mention the frustrated audition for America's Rising Stars. "Would you mind if I posted this video on my blog? It's a space where I promote talents and cultural events in New Orleans." Victoria looked at the house where her mother worked. Uncertain. "I need to ask my mom." When Louisa came out to check on her daughter, Rachel explained her proposal. Initially hesitant, Louisa eventually agreed after the young journalist's insistence, who promised that the video could help give visibility to Victoria's unique talent. "I have a small cultural blog, but it has loyal followers, especially people connected to the arts in New Orleans. Who knows? Maybe this will open some doors for her." 3 days later, Rachel published the video on her blog New Orleans Cultural, with a sensitive text about hidden talents in the city's streets. She added a brief biography of Victoria, highlighting her story of overcoming challenges and self-teaching. Initially, the video had a modest repercussion, some shares, complimentary comments, nothing extraordinary. Rachel sent the link to Louisa, who showed her daughter the positive comments left by strangers, praising her talent and sensitivity. "See, it wasn't just Marina and her teacher who saw your potential," Louisa said proudly. A week later, something unexpected happened. A cultural influencer with over 1 million followers shared the video on their social media, with the caption, This girl playing the violin in a New Orleans square is proof that true talent doesn't need sophisticated stages. Does anyone know who she is? Within hours, the video began to go viral. Thousands of shares, tens of thousands of likes. People wanted to know who that girl was, where she had learned to play, what that music was that conveyed so much emotion. Rachel saw her blog flooded with access. Journalists from larger outlets began to contact her, asking for information about Victoria. She informed Louisa about what was happening, asking if they could give some interviews. This is getting too big, Louisa worried. I don't know if so much exposure is good for Victoria. But Victoria herself, seeing the video being shared by thousands of people, felt a mix of surprise and validation. People really liked her music. Strangers from all over were being touched by something she had created. I want to do the interviews, Mom, she said, determined. If people like my music, I want more people to hear it. In the following weeks, the phenomenon grew even more. The video reached national TV programs, which showed it as an example of pure talent emerging from the most improbable conditions. Blogs and specialized music sites analyzed Victoria's unusual technique, highlighting how her lack of formal training resulted in a unique and emotionally powerful approach. Marina was ecstatic when the video reached her. I knew it. I always knew you were special, she exclaimed over the phone. Everyone at school is talking about you. Even my piano teacher shared the video. The recognition was gratifying, but Victoria remained the same simple girl from Hope Gardens. While the video reached millions of views, she continued practicing daily, now with a new surge of confidence and motivation. One morning, while Louisa was preparing coffee, the phone rang. It was Rachel, her voice overflowing with excitement. You won't believe it! The production of America's Rising Stars contacted me. They saw the video and want to invite Victoria to perform directly on the show without going through the preliminary auditions. Victoria, who was listening to the conversation next to her mother, felt her legs weaken. The show that had rejected her was now inviting her because of a video recorded in a random square on an ordinary day. Is this serious? Louisa asked, incredulous. Completely serious. They want her to participate in the next recording, which will be in 2 weeks in New York City. They'll cover all expenses, flights, accommodation, everything. When Louisa hung up the phone, she looked at her daughter with tear-filled eyes. It seems life comes full circle, doesn't it, honey? Victoria couldn't find words. Her dream, which seemed to have been buried after the failed audition, was now resurfacing in a way she could never have imagined. And all because of a spontaneous moment, captured by a stranger on a random afternoon. What do you want to do? Louisa asked. Victoria clutched the violin to her chest, feeling the warmth of the wood, as if the instrument had a life of its own, a life that had intertwined with hers in mysterious and profound ways. I want to play, Mom, she replied simply. I want to play for the whole world to hear. The news of the invitation from America's Rising Stars spread rapidly through Hope Gardens. Neighbors who had barely noticed Victoria and her violin before now knocked on their door to congratulate them and offer advice. Mrs. Zuleika brought a corn cake to celebrate, while Mr. Adam, the corner grocery store owner, insisted on giving Victoria a new notebook to write down her compositions. The girl is going to be famous and put our neighborhood on the map, he would say, proud as if Victoria were his own granddaughter. Amidst the growing excitement, Marina appeared at the door of the small apartment on a Sunday afternoon, something unprecedented. It was the first time the Vance daughter had visited Victoria's house. Louisa was nervous, worried about the simplicity of the environment, but Marina seemed not to even notice the peeling walls or the worn furniture. I came to help you choose what to play and what to wear, she announced, carrying a large bag. Mom doesn't even know I'm here, but that doesn't matter now. Inside the bag was a simple but elegant turquoise blue dress that Marina had bought especially for her friend. It's from the store where Mom always buys my performance clothes. I thought the color would suit you. Victoria touched the soft fabric, moved by the gesture. I can't accept it, Marina. It's already the second expensive gift you've given me. Marina shook her head, determined. The violin opened this door for you, and this dress will help show the whole country the incredible talent you have. They're not gifts, Victoria. They're investments in your future. The two spent the afternoon trying on the dress, which luckily fit perfectly, and discussing which piece Victoria should play. "It has to be your father's music," Marina insisted. "It's what touched people's hearts in the video. It's what has your soul. But it's not a complete song. There are parts I made up, others I don't remember clearly. And that's exactly what makes it special. It's a collaboration between you and your father, even if he's not here anymore." In the days that followed, a show production team contacted them to organize the travel details. Victoria and Louisa had never left New Orleans, much less traveled by plane. The idea of going to New York City, the largest city in the country, was as daunting as it was exciting. "What's it like to fly, Mom?" Victoria asked one night as they counted the days on the calendar. "I don't know, honey." "I've never flown before," Louisa replied with a nervous smile. "We'll find out together." A week before the scheduled date, another unexpected event shook the family's routine. Cecilia Vance appeared in person at Louisa's apartment, something she had never done in the years she employed her. "I heard from Marina about the show's invitation," she said, seeming genuinely interested. "You must be very proud of your daughter." Louisa nodded, uncomfortable with her employer's presence in her simple home. "I am. Mrs. Cecilia. She worked very hard." Cecilia observed the apartment with curiosity, her eyes lingering on the violin resting on the table. "That's my father's violin," she commented, in a tone Louisa couldn't decipher. "I thought it had been donated years ago." "Marina gave it to Victoria," Louisa explained hastily. "If you want us to return it—" Cecilia raised her hand, interrupting her. "By no means. If that instrument helped awaken a talent like your daughter's, it's exactly where it should be." She opened her expensive purse and pulled out an envelope. "I came to bring this. It's a check to help with extra travel expenses. I know the show covers the basics, but there are always unexpected costs." Louisa looked at the envelope with hesitation. "I can't accept it." "Mrs. Cecilia, it's too much." "It's not charity, Louisa," Cecilia interrupted firmly. "Consider it an advance for years of dedicated service. Besides, your daughter is about to represent New Orleans on national television. We all want her to shine." Reluctantly, Louisa accepted the envelope. When Cecilia left, she opened it and almost fainted at the sight of the amount. It was more than she earned in 2 months of work. Victoria, who had heard the conversation from her room, appeared in the living room. "Why did she do that, Mom?" Louisa looked at her daughter, thoughtful. "Sometimes, honey, people surprise us. Maybe Mrs. Cecilia has a bigger heart than we imagined. Or maybe she just wants to be part of this beautiful story that's happening to you." Finally, the big day arrived. With tickets in hand and a small suitcase containing the violin, carefully wrapped in a blanket, basic clothes and the turquoise blue dress, mother and daughter headed to Louis Armstrong New Orleans International Airport. Marina and, surprisingly, Cecilia appeared to say goodbye. "Show them the best of New Orleans," Marina said, hugging her friend tightly. The flight to New York City was a magical experience for Victoria. Through the small window, she watched the clouds, imagining what it would be like to play for them if the sound would reach differently up there, so close to the sky. Louisa, beside her, alternated between admiration for the landscape and nervousness from occasional turbulence. When they landed at John F. Kennedy International Airport, a production assistant was already waiting for them with a sign that read, "Victoria, America's Rising Stars." He led them to a taxi that would take them to the hotel where they would be staying. The New York metropolis was a shock to the senses of someone who had always lived in New Orleans. The immense buildings seemed to touch the clouds. The intense traffic formed a river of metal and glass, and the air had an autumnal crispness that contrasted with the Louisiana heat they were used to. The hotel, though not luxurious, was much more comfortable than any place Victoria had ever slept. There was a flat-screen television, air conditioning, and an instant hot water shower, small luxuries that made her feel like a princess. The next morning, they were taken to the studios where the show was recorded. It was a huge complex with many people running back and forth, carrying equipment, adjusting lights, testing microphones. "Nervous?" Louisa asked, noticing how her daughter clutched the violin case. "A little," Victoria admitted. "But I'm also happy. I feel like Dad is here with me, you know." A producer came to get them and explained the process. There would be a technical rehearsal in the morning, where Victoria could familiarize herself with the stage, lights and sound. Then she would be taken for makeup and costume. The recording would happen in the afternoon with a live audience. And the judges? Who are they? Victoria asked. We have singer Paul Miller, actress Claudia Ferris, and our most demanding judge, Maestro Thaddeus Martin, the producer replied. Victoria felt her heart race. The same Maestro Thaddeus Marina had mentioned, the man who said that true talent came from the soul, not from sheet music. For some reason, his opinion mattered most to her. The technical rehearsal went well, with small adjustments made to the positioning of the microphone that would capture the violin's sound. Victoria felt tiny on the immense stage, under the powerful lights and in front of the empty rows of chairs that would be occupied in a few hours. In the makeup room, a friendly young woman enhanced Victoria's features without making her look artificial. We want to highlight your natural beauty, she explained. You already have your own glow. The turquoise blue dress, combined with silver ballet flats that had also been gifts from Marina, completed the look. When Victoria looked in the mirror, she barely recognized herself. She didn't look like the same girl who played the violin on the porch of the small apartment in Hope Gardens. You look beautiful, honey, Louisa said, her eyes welling up. The hours passed quickly. Soon the audience began to enter, and the dressing rooms buzzed with the nervous energy of the participants. Victoria would be the third performance of the night. Hidden in the wings, she watched the first two contestants, an impressive young juggler and a pair of gymnast sisters who drew gasps from the audience with their acrobatics. And now, the host announced enthusiastically, we have a story that has already moved millions of Americans through social media. A girl of just 10 years old who learned music by herself and carries her father's legacy in every note she plays. Directly from New Orleans, Louisiana, please give a warm welcome to Victoria Santos. Amidst warm applause, Victoria walked to the center of the stage. The lights partially blinded her, making the audience an indistinct blur. She could only see the silhouettes of the three judges at the table. The host approached with a microphone. Victoria, tell us a little about yourself and the music you're going to perform today. Taking a deep breath to control her nervousness, Victoria began. I live in Hope Gardens, in New Orleans, with my mom, who is a cleaner. My dad was a self-taught musician and composed this melody for me when I was born, but he passed away when I was 7. I never had formal violin lessons. I learned by myself. The music I'm going to play is a reconstruction of what my dad composed, mixed with parts I created to complete what I don't clearly remember. A respectful silence fell over the studio. Victoria positioned the violin under her chin, closed her eyes and began to play. The first notes flowed softly, hesitant like the fragmented memories of her father. Gradually, the melody gained confidence, incorporating the elements Victoria had added. Passages that spoke of longing, of overcoming challenges, of dreams that persist even when everything seems impossible. With her eyes closed, she didn't see the audience, but she could feel the energy of the room changing. The silence was almost palpable, charged with emotion. In her mind, she was no longer under the spotlights of a New York studio, but on the small porch at home, playing for the wind and for her father's memory. When the last note sounded, a moment of absolute silence hung in the air before the audience erupted in applause. Victoria opened her eyes, surprised by the reaction. People rose from their seats, some wiping away tears. Maestro Thaddeus Martin, the most feared judge, was standing. His austere face had softened into an expression of genuine admiration. He signaled for the microphone to be passed to him. Victoria, he began, his deep voice carrying a contained emotion. In 50 years dedicated to music, I have rarely encountered a talent as pure as yours. He paused, looking directly at the girl. What you did here today was not just playing an instrument. You told us a story. You shared your soul with us. There is no technique that compares to that. There is no conservatory in the world that can teach what you demonstrated naturally. The other judges agreed, adding their own praises. Actress Claudia confessed she had cried throughout the performance, while singer Paul highlighted the originality of the composition. Victoria heard everything in a state of almost dream, barely believing they were talking about her, her music, her talent. She looked for her mother in the wings and saw her openly weeping, her hands clasped as in a prayer of gratitude. When she finally left the eye, Stage after the seemingly endless applause, she was enveloped in Louisa's strong embrace. "Your father would be so proud," her mother whispered in her ear. "As proud as I am." That night back at the hotel, Victoria couldn't sleep. She relived every moment on stage, every word from the judges, every second of the transformative experience. From the window of her room, she watched the lights of the city that never slept, feeling that her life had changed forever. Louisa's phone rang at 10 the next morning. It was the show's production. "Good news," the coordinator said. "Maestro Thaddeus asked to speak with you personally. Can I pick you up in half an hour?" Intrigued, mother and daughter quickly got ready. The production van took them not to the studio, but to an elegant cafe in Greenwich Village. There, Maestro Thaddeus awaited them at a discreet table in the back. "Thank you for coming," he said, rising to greet them. "I couldn't sleep last night thinking about what I witnessed yesterday." Victoria, who had imagined the maestro as a distant and intimidating figure, was surprised by his personal simplicity. He wore jeans and a simple blue shirt, his grey hair slightly disheveled. "Your performance touched me deeply, Victoria," he continued after they ordered drinks. "There is something in your gift that transcends the technical, something that is not taught in music schools." He paused, as if searching for the right words. "I have a cultural foundation in New York City. We discover and support young talents from underserved communities, offering scholarships, instruments, and opportunities for artistic development." Victoria and Louisa listened attentively, not daring to interrupt. "I would like to invite you to be part of our program. You would have private teachers, a professional violin, and the chance to study with some of the best musicians in the country." Victoria stared at Maestro Thaddeus, speechless. The invitation was so unexpected, so beyond anything she could have imagined, that it seemed unreal. But that would mean moving to New York City?" Louisa asked, trying to process the implications of the offer. The maestro nodded. "Yes, it would be necessary. The foundation has a small community where our scholarship students and their families can live while participating in the program. It's a safe and welcoming environment, designed so that young talents can focus on their artistic development." He took a sip of coffee before continuing. "I understand it's a huge decision, leaving your city, your friends, your life in New Orleans. I don't expect an immediate answer, but I want you to know that this offer is genuine and comes from the heart." Louisa looked at her daughter, trying to decipher her feelings. Victoria's face was a whirlwind of emotions: surprise, excitement, fear, hope. "Can we think about it for a bit?" Louisa asked. "Of course," the maestro replied, handing them a card. "Here are my personal contacts. When you make a decision, speak directly with me, not through the show's production." On the flight back to New Orleans, Victoria remained uncommonly silent. Through the window, she watched the United States pass below them, an immense country, full of contrasts and possibilities she had barely imagined until then. "What are you thinking about, honey?" Louisa asked, noticing her distant gaze. "I'm thinking about everything, Mum, about how our life changed so fast. A few months ago, I didn't even know how to hold a violin properly." Louisa smiled, taking her hand. "And now you're coming back from New York City after moving the whole country." When the plane landed in New Orleans, a small crowd awaited them at arrivals. Neighbors from Hope Gardens, Victoria's schoolmates, and even a reporter from a local newspaper who wanted to record the return of the new local celebrity. Marina was there too, jumping for joy when she spotted them. She hugged Victoria tightly, as if they had spent months without seeing each other instead of just a few days. "You rocked it. Everyone at school saw it. The music teacher even showed your performance in class as an example of expressiveness." Between hugs and questions, they finally managed to get home. The small apartment never seemed so welcoming after the hustle and bustle of the past few days. Victoria placed the violin case on the table, feeling a mix of relief to be in familiar territory and a new restlessness about what the future held. Over the next week, mother and daughter talked extensively about Maestro Thaddeus's proposal. The decision to leave New Orleans was not easy. It would mean abandoning everything they knew: the neighborhood where Louisa had raised Victoria alone, their friends, the school, the memories of Joachim that seemed to inhabit every corner of the city. On the other hand, it was a unique opportunity. Victoria could develop her talent in a way that would never be possible by staying where they were, with limited resources and without access to formal music education. "What does your heart say, honey?" Louisa asked one night as they had dinner. Victoria thought for a moment, stirring the food on her plate. "My heart is divided, Mum. I love New Orleans, our home, our neighbors, but I feel that music calls me to something greater. As if Dad is guiding me on a path he couldn't follow." Louisa nodded, understanding. "I know you miss him every day, I do too, but I think your father would want you to follow this dream, even if it meant leaving part of him behind." "We wouldn't be leaving him behind," Victoria corrected softly. "He is in the music, and the music goes with me wherever I go." The next day they visited Marina to tell her about the maestro's proposal. Her friend listened with wide eyes, a mix of joy and sadness on her face. "This is amazing, Victoria. A chance like this, you have to accept it. But what about you? Our friendship? I'll miss you so much." Marina took Victoria's hands in hers. "True friendships don't end with distance. New York City isn't another country. We can video call, text, and during holidays I can visit you or you can come here." Her eyes sparkled with a sudden idea. "And who knows, maybe one day we'll study together. I've always wanted to explore other styles besides the classical music my mom insists I play. Maybe when I finish high school, I can study music in New York City too." The conversation with Marina brought a new perspective. Perhaps changes didn't mean definitive endings, but new beginnings, new possibilities for everyone involved. On the way home, Louisa and Victoria took a detour, stopping at the cemetery where Joachim was buried. It was a simple place, with modest gravestones and plastic flowers faded by the relentless New Orleans sun. Before her father's grave, Victoria took the violin from its case. Without saying a word, she began to play the music that connected them, the melody he had composed for her, now enriched with her own additions and interpretations. The notes floated among the gravestones, dancing with the warm afternoon breeze, as if they were an intimate conversation between father and daughter. Louisa watched the scene with silent tears, feeling that somehow Joachim was present, hearing the legacy he had left. When Victoria finished playing, she put the violin away and gently touched the gravestone. "I'll take you with me, Dad," she whispered, "in every note I play." That night the decision was made. Louisa called the number Maestro Thaddeus had left, and to her surprise he answered personally after only 2 rings. "We've decided to accept your proposal," she said, her voice firm despite the emotion. "We believe it's best for Victoria's future. I am very happy with your decision," the maestro replied, satisfaction evident in his voice. "I promise you won't regret it. We will take good care of Victoria, and she will have every opportunity to develop her extraordinary gift." In the days that followed, everything happened with dizzying speed. The Maestro Thaddeus Martin Cultural Foundation sent representatives to New Orleans to help with the moving preparations. Louisa gave notice to her employers, including Cecilia Vance, who surprisingly offered generous severance pay for years of dedicated service. News of Victoria's departure spread through Hope Gardens like wildfire. Neighbors organized a farewell party in the small community square, a simple event, with homemade cake and soda, but filled with genuine affection. Victoria played for them, moving everyone with the music that was now nationally known as Victoria's Melody. On the eve of their departure, Marina appeared at the apartment carrying a decorated box. "A farewell gift," she explained, handing it to Victoria. Inside, there was a photo album documenting their friendship, from the first day Victoria visited the Vance house, through the violin practice sessions, to the moment they watched Victoria's performance on America's Rising Stars together. "So you never forget where you came from, and who was by your side at the beginning," Marina said. Her voice choked. There was also a small flash drive. "I downloaded dozens of violin lesson videos from basic to advanced. I know you'll have amazing teachers now, but I thought maybe you'd want to keep a bit of your self-taught method." The 2 friends hugged for a long time, promising to keep in touch and swearing that distance would not weaken the special bond they had built. The morning of their departure arrived sunny, as if New Orleans wanted to say goodbye with its best appearance. A car from the foundation came to pick them up, carrying the few suitcases that contained their belongings. Most of the furniture and bulkier items would be left behind, donated to neighbors or stored at Mrs. Zuleika's house, who promised to take care of everything. Before getting into the car, Victoria looked one last time at the small building where she had grown up, at the porch where she had taken her first steps with the violin, at the street where she had played in childhood. She imprinted every detail in her memory, knowing that even if she returned someday, nothing would be exactly the same. At the airport, a final surprise awaited them. Marina and Cecilia were there for one last goodbye. But they were not alone. There was a group of about 20 people, all employees of the gated community where Cecilia lived and where Louisa had worked for years. Housekeepers, gardeners, doormen, caretakers, all wanted to say goodbye to their colleague's daughter, who had charmed the nation. "You made us proud," said Joseph, the elderly doorman, who always had a gentle smile for Victoria when she arrived with her mother. "You showed that our children can also dream big." Amidst tears and hugs, promises and wishes for success, Louisa and Victoria finally boarded the plane that would take them to a new life. During the flight, Victoria looked at the violin tucked into the overhead compartment. That instrument, forgotten for years in a closet in the Vance house, had become the vehicle of her transformation. Through it, she had found not only her voice, but also a way to honor her father's legacy. "What are you thinking about?" Louisa asked, noticing her daughter's contemplative gaze. "I'm thinking about how life comes full circle, Mum. A year ago, I didn't even know what I wanted to be when I grew up. Now we're going to New York City for me to study with one of the greatest maestros in the country." Louisa smiled, taking her hand. "Your father used to say that music has the power to open doors we didn't even know existed. It seems he was right." When the plane landed in New York City, a new chapter began. At the arrival gate, Maestro Thaddeus waited for them personally, with a simple sign that read, "Welcome, Victoria." Beside him, there was a young violinist Victoria recognized immediately. It was Camilla Sawyer, winner of the previous season of America's Rising Stars, and now a student at the foundation. "You'll love it here," Camilla assured them as they walked to the car. "There are people from all over the United States, each with a different story, but all united by music." The foundation's community was located in a wooded area on the outskirts of New York City. It was a simple but beautiful complex, with small, colorful houses, landscaped common areas, and a central building where classes and rehearsals took place. The apartment assigned to Louisa and Victoria was modest, yet far superior to what they had in New Orleans. 2 bedrooms, a spacious living room, an equipped kitchen, and a small balcony where Victoria could practice. "This will be your home for as long as you wish," the maestro explained. "The only requirement is dedication and respect for music." On that first night in New York City, lying in her new bed, in her new room, in her new city, Victoria picked up the violin once more. On the balcony illuminated by the crescent moon, she softly played her father's melody, the music that had changed her life. The notes floated in the cool New York night air, traveling perhaps to New Orleans, perhaps even further, to where her father could hear them. It was a song of gratitude, of longing, but above all of hope, a melody that spoke of an honored past and a brilliant future that was just beginning. The next day, her new journey would officially begin. There would be music theory classes, technique classes, music history classes. There would be new friends, new challenges, new discoveries. But at that moment, under the starry sky of a still strange city, Victoria was at peace. Her violin was no longer just an instrument. It was a bridge between worlds, between the past and the future, between the girl from Hope Gardens and the musician who was being born, between the melody her father had created and the symphony her life was becoming. When the last note dissipated into the night, Victoria smiled. The music would continue, always. In new places, with new chords, but always carrying the essence of what truly mattered: love, memory, and the courage to follow the heart's calling, and no matter how improbable the path might seem. Weeks later, as she stepped onto the stage for her first performance as a student of the Maestro Thaddeus Martin Cultural Foundation, Victoria felt no fear. With the violin under her chin, she looked at the audience and saw her mother in the front row, her eyes shining with pride. Beside her was Marina, who had traveled especially for the occasion. And so, under the stage lights, Victoria began to play. No longer the incomplete melody she carried from the past, but an entirely new composition, one that spoke of inner-city neighborhoods and mansions, of improbable friendships, of viral videos and second chances, of forgotten violins and discovered talents, a melody that, like Victoria herself, had found its true voice. Dear listeners, we hope Victoria's story has touched your hearts as much as her violin touched the soul of the United States. For more emotions like this, we have a special playlist with other stories of overcoming challenges and talent. Find it by clicking here on the side. If this musical journey moved you, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave your like. Every day we bring unique stories that explore the beauty of second chances and dreams that seemed impossible. And you, what talent do you hide within yourself? Tell us in the comments.